Elon Musk's recent announcement has shocked the economic and political world. He has found a way that will completely devalue the Panama Canal and make it unnecessary. If this is true, one of the most strategically important transportation arteries in the world, bringing in billions of dollars in revenue, could become a useless object in the coming years.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
What is the strategy?
Yeah. I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security.
But what exactly has Musk proposed? How can his idea replace the canal, which is used by thousands of ships every year, and through it passes more than 5% of the world's cargo turnover? Let's break it down. The Panama Canal was opened in 1914 and has remained an indispensable link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans ever since. It allowed ships to avoid the long and dangerous route around South America via Cape Horn, reducing the distance by more than 8,000 kilometers. Today, however, the canal faces problems. Drought. Due to water shortages, capacity is reduced and fares are rising.
And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way.
Queues. During peak periods, ships can wait 2 to 3 weeks for passage. Rising prices, the cost of transit increases, forcing companies to look for alternative routes. Under such conditions, Musk's idea to bypass the Panama Canal looks like a revolutionary solution that can change logistics forever.
Changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name.
According to Elon, traditional waterways are a thing of the past. He is sure that innovative technologies can completely change the system of international transportation. Musk has long been developing the concept of hyperloop, transportation on magnetic levitation in vacuum tubes, capable of accelerating up to 1,200 km/h. Now he's proposing a cargo version of the system that could move containers faster, cheaper and safer. Instead of ships traveling through the channel, containers would be reloaded at hyperloop stations on the west coast and literally delivered to the east coast in a matter of hours. This eliminates the risks of delays and weather, and most importantly, saves time and money. Another improbable but quite possible option is hypersonic cargo transportation through space. SpaceX is already testing Starship, and Musk said that in the future the ships could be used for cargo needs. How would that work? Starship cargo ships will launch from one coast, cross the atmosphere at an altitude of 100 kilometers, and land on the other coast in 30 minutes. This technology would completely eliminate dependence on water routes, making the traditional shipping industry obsolete. In the third scenario, Musk and Tesla are developing a new type of land-based autonomous freight transportation. Instead of traditional railroads and ships, a new transcontinental route will connect the coasts of the US and Mexico using electric cargo convoys and drones that will automatically transport containers faster and cheaper than shipping. This method will not only make the canal unnecessary, but will also reduce the carbon footprint, which is especially important for environmentally conscious companies. As you might expect, Elon Musk's announcement provoked a strong reaction around the world. Panama is in a panic. The authorities of the country, which receives huge revenues from the canal, more than $2 billion a year, fear the collapse of the economy and are already preparing emergency measures. World logistics giants are interested. Companies such as Maersk and Maersk are considering using new technologies proposed by Musk.
The Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China
and Europe are concerned. The US largest trading partners worry that the new technology will disrupt their supply chains and make them dependent on US routes. In response to Musk's statements, the Panama Canal has already announced a new modernization, but many experts believe that Musk's revolutionary technology will simply leave the old system in the past. If Musk actually realizes his ideas, it will be the biggest change in world trade in the last 100 years. The Panama Canal will lose its importance, and with it Panama's economic clout. Water transportation will undergo major changes as new land and space transportation will make it inefficient. Global economic alliances will be renegotiated as countries dependent on the Panama Canal will have to adapt to the new reality. Elon Musk has proven time and again that his ideas, no matter how unbelievable they may seem, eventually become reality. Let's remember SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, all of these once seemed like science fiction. Can he really make the Panama Canal unnecessary? The answer is yes. The only question is what kind of technology will replace it and how quickly it will be implemented. The Panama Canal is one of the world's most important transportation routes, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Since its opening in 1914, it has been under the control of the United States, which has ensured its operation and security. However, the question of the canal's ownership remained disputed for a long time. Panama considered it as part of its territory, and tensions between the countries were growing. In 1977, U.S. President Jimmy Carter and Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos signed an agreement according to which the management of the canal was to be gradually transferred to Panama. Already in 1979, the country received the first control rights, and the final transfer took place on December 31, 1999. Since then, the canal has been fully managed by the Panama Canal Authority, ACP, which is responsible for its operation, modernization, and financial management. The main element of the canal's operation is the locks, which allow ships to rise and fall between water levels. Unlike other canals such as the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal utilizes the natural flow of water from large bodies of water, Lakes Gatun, Alajuela, and Miraflores. This allows the lock chambers to be filled without the use of pumps, which significantly reduces energy costs. When a vessel enters a lock, the water either lifts it up if it is traveling to a higher level or brings it down if it is traveling in the opposite direction. This process is repeated in several chambers until the ship reaches the desired level. The lock system enables ships to cross the Isthmus of Panama in just 10 to 12 hours instead of going around South America, which would take more than 2 months.
The most expensive thing, the most expensive thing we've ever built is the Panama Canal.
And you're serious
and
about it?
Unfortunately, Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. Oh, no, we're going to have to take it back. China is running the Panama Canal right now. That wasn't the deal.
Although all lock chambers are the same length and width, their depths vary depending on location. For example, the Gatun locks on the Atlantic coast consist of 3 chambers, while Miraflores on the Pacific side has 2 chambers with different depths. A huge modernization was completed in 2016 with the construction of a new set of Neo-Panamax locks. They are designed for large vessels up to 366 meters long and 49 meters wide, which significantly increased the canal's capacity. Despite its technological sophistication, the canal faces a number of challenges. One of the main problems remains water scarcity due to climate change. Dry periods reduce the water level in reservoirs, which limits the number of vessels passing through the canal and leads to an increase in tariffs. Another threat is growing competition from alternative routes, such as the Mexican interoceanic Riachal corridor and the potential Nicaraguan canal. Nevertheless, Panama is actively investing in modernizing its waterway, developing new water-saving technologies, and improving navigation systems. All of this allows the canal to maintain a key role in world trade. The Panama Canal uses a lock system that works by gravity to move water from man-made lakes Gatun and Alajuela. Each time a ship passes through the locks, huge volumes of fresh water are dumped into the ocean. Each transit uses about 200 million liters of water, making the canal extremely dependent on rainfall and water resources in the region. In recent years, however, Panama has been facing an abnormal drought caused by global climate change. Rainfall in the Isthmus of Panama has been significantly reduced, and the water level in Lake Gatun, the canal's main source of water supply, has fallen to critically low levels. In 2023, the water level in Gatun Lake was 1.5 meters below normal, the lowest level in decades. This water shortage limits the number of vessels that can pass through the canal daily, as the insufficient water level makes it impossible for them to ascend and descend through the locks. As a result, the canal's capacity has been reduced from 36 to 22 ships per day, creating huge queues of ships waiting for their turn to pass through. Ship delays in the Panama Canal have already become a serious problem for the global transportation market. In 2023, more than 200 ships were waiting to pass at the same time, resulting in delays of several weeks. Such delays cause a chain reaction. Cargo that was supposed to arrive at ports in the US, Europe, and Asia does not make it to the scheduled time, which disrupts the work of logistics companies and manufacturers. Due to water shortages, the canal has to limit the draft of ships, which means that large container ships and tankers cannot be loaded to their full capacity. Companies are forced to either reduce the amount of cargo transported or look for alternative routes, which significantly increases transportation costs. For example, the cost of container transportation from China to the USA via the Panama Canal has increased by 20 to 30%. In some cases, ship owners prefer to bypass Panama, increasing the distance of their route by more than 8,000 kilometers around South America, resulting in additional fuel, labor, and insurance costs. Energy companies and producers of consumer goods suffer the most from such delays. The Panama Canal plays a key role in the transportation of oil, liquefied natural gas, LNG, and grain, and delays can lead to higher energy and food prices around the world. The biggest problems are experienced by companies that depend on regular shipments through the canal. Among them, logistics corporations. Cargo delays create chaos in global shipments, forcing companies to renegotiate routes. Oil companies. The Panama Canal is an important corridor for oil and gas shipments, and its instability leads to spikes in energy prices. Asian exporters, China, Japan, and South Korea heavily use the canal to ship goods to the US and Europe, and delays create logistical problems. Agricultural exporters. The US uses the canal to ship grain to Asia, and disruptions could trigger food crises. Panama Canal problems are forcing companies to look for alternative routes. In recent years, three main options for bypassing Panama have begun to be considered. The Cape Horn bypass is the longest route, increasing the distance by 8,000 kilometers. It is used in extreme cases, as it requires more fuel and time. Mexico Corridor Railroad. The Interoceanic Corridor Railway project proposes to transport containers by rail between the Atlantic and the Pacific, but it requires additional transshipment costs. Arctic Sea Route. With global warming, a route through the Arctic becomes available during the summer months, but it remains dangerous due to ice and difficult weather conditions. Despite the development of alternative routes, the Panama Canal remains the most convenient and cost-effective route, so drought management is a priority for its administration. The Panamanian government and the Canal Administration, ACP, are already taking measures to combat the water shortage. Among the proposed solutions, creation of new reservoirs. The construction of additional reservoirs capable of storing more fresh water during droughts is being considered. When modernizing locks, using water-saving technologies to reduce the amount of water used each time a ship transits. Vessel caps, imposing limits on vessel transits during periods of severe drought to conserve water levels. Long-term climate programs. Panama participates in international initiatives to combat climate change because of the global nature of the drought problem. The Panama Canal is a critical element of world trade, and its problems affect the global economy. If droughts continue to worsen, the canal could face even greater restrictions, forcing shipping companies to more actively seek alternative routes. At the same time, the Panamanian authorities realize the importance of the canal and are investing in its modernization. The question is whether Panama will be able to adapt to changing climatic conditions. If the Canal Administration does not find an effective way to deal with water shortages, it is possible that future generations will not use the Panama Canal but other, more sustainable routes. Thus, Panama's drought problem is not just a localized environmental disaster, but a serious challenge to the entire global economy. While Panama is looking for solutions, companies that depend on the canal are forced to rethink their logistics, incur additional costs, and look for alternative ways to deliver their goods. In the coming years, we will see whether the Panama Canal will be able to maintain its leading role, or whether it will face a gradual decline in favor of new routes. The Panama Canal's problems caused by drought and declining water levels have captured the world's attention. With the canal unable to carry the same number of ships as before, competition for alternative routes is growing, and global players are actively seeking solutions to minimize dependence on this crucial transport corridor. The reaction of the world community to these changes shows how important the Panama Canal is for international trade and what steps different countries and corporations are taking in response to the crisis. Panamanian authorities assure that despite the temporary difficulties, their canal remains the most efficient and reliable route for shipping. The Panama Canal Authority, ACP, says it is taking all possible measures to stabilize the situation, including improving water-saving technologies, regulating traffic, and investing in infrastructure upgrades. They emphasize that the Panama Canal is not just a convenient route, but also a well-established logistics system with a well-developed infrastructure that allows for significant time savings compared to alternative routes. In addition, the Panamanian authorities are holding talks with major logistics corporations and shipping companies, convincing them to continue using the canal despite the time constraints. Nevertheless, the US, China, and European countries are closely monitoring the situation and are actively considering investments in alternative routes. For the US, the Panama Canal has always been of strategic importance, as it plays a key role in the transportation of goods between the east and west coasts of the country. However, with its performance deteriorating, US companies are looking for other ways. One such solution could be the development of a rail corridor through Mexico, which would allow containers to quickly cross the continent overland. US investors are already showing interest in this project, seeing it as an opportunity to reduce dependence on the Panama Canal. China, the largest trading partner of many countries, is also actively exploring alternative routes. In recent years, China has invested heavily in infrastructure development projects in Latin America, including the Mexican Interoceanic Railroad Corridor, which could become a competitor to the Panama Canal. In addition, China continues to develop its One Belt, One Road project, which includes the expansion of sea and land routes between Asia, Europe, and the Americas. The possibility of bypassing the Panama Canal, especially with its unstable operation, is seen as part of China's long-term strategy to diversify transportation routes. Logistics companies and shipping corporations around the world have already begun to review their strategies. With delays in the Panama Canal, many are being forced to lay down additional shipping costs and look for alternative solutions. Some companies are opting for longer routes around South America, despite the increased costs, while others are testing combined delivery schemes, for example, using rail transportation in combination with sea transportation. All of this is leading to changes in the global logistics structure and the creation of new transportation hubs. In response to the changed situation, the Panama Canal Authority continues to look for ways to stabilize the canal. Studies are underway to create new reservoirs that could provide additional water supply to the locks, and technologies are being considered to reduce water consumption during each ship transit. However, such projects require significant investment and time, and the drought situation requires immediate solutions. Therefore, the Panamanian authorities are also trying to negotiate with major shipping companies, offering them more flexible transit terms and discounts on canal services in exchange for long-term contracts. One possible solution to the problem is to improve water management in the region. Panama is considering joint projects with other countries to study modern methods of water conservation and climate regulation. It is also negotiating with international organizations, such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, to provide funds to upgrade the canal's infrastructure and introduce new technologies. However, even if Panama succeeds in stabilizing the canal, the crisis has already had long-term consequences for global trade. Shipping companies have realized how risky dependence on a single route can be and have begun to actively seek alternative routes. This could lead to a gradual decline in the importance of the Panama Canal in the future, especially if alternative routes prove to be sufficiently efficient. In the coming years, the world is likely to see increased competition between different transportation corridors. The Panama Canal will remain the most important shipping route, but it will no longer be perceived as the only viable option for international transportation. The development of rail routes, the Arctic Sea route, and other alternatives will change the landscape of global trade, forcing companies to adapt to new conditions. Thus, the world community's reaction to the Panama Canal problems demonstrates how much the global economy depends on the stability of transportation routes. Panamanian authorities assure that their canal remains the most reliable choice, but at the same time, major global players such as the US, China, and Europe have already started looking for alternative solutions. In the coming years, we can expect further development of competing routes and changes in logistics strategies that could have a significant impact on the global economy. The idea of building the Nicaragua Canal as an alternative to the Panama Canal has been discussed for a long time. This project, which could connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, could theoretically relieve the Panama Canal and offer a new route for international transportation. However, its realization faces serious geographical and political difficulties. The main advantage of the Nicaraguan Canal is its wider waterways, which would allow the passage of extra-large ships that do not have access to the Panama Canal, even after its modernization. However, geographic complexities, deep lakes, mountainous areas, earthquake risks make construction extremely costly. Environmental issues, such as threats to biodiversity and local populations, are also a concern. Additionally, the project faces political instability. Nicaragua is a country with a difficult governance situation, and investing in such a large-scale project carries high risks. Previously, the PRC had shown interest in funding, but now the project is virtually frozen due to economic and diplomatic concerns. The Panama Canal continues to be the main transportation corridor between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but drought and water shortages pose serious challenges. The global community is looking for alternative routes, including the Mexican Railroad Corridor and the potential Nicaraguan Canal, but these projects are not yet capable of fully replacing the Panama Canal. Further competition for control of global logistics can be expected in the coming years. Panama continues to modernize the canal, while the world's largest economies, the US, China, and Europe, are looking for new routes for stable cargo flow. Time will tell which route will ultimately prove to be the most efficient, but it is already clear that the world can no longer rely on one waterway alone.